what would you buy?
Just because they're not getting maybe what they want in a certain situation.
Hello, it's Sam here from Macomb Properties. I'm here with David and Will from Innerspace. If you guys can just introduce yourselves a little bit.
Yep, good afternoon. I'm David. I am the design director at Innerspace. I look after all of the brands that we work with and all of the clients that work with us on a daily basis.
Okay, nice.
Yep, and I'm Will. I'm one of the designers, quite new to the company, dealing with kitchen design, Hacker and Kaiser.
Nice. So the company is Innerspace.
Yeah.
But you guys have several brands.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So Innerspace is essentially a collective of luxury German brands.
Okay.
But Innerspace, we focus and specialize on high-end luxury German kitchens.
Okay.
And of those brands, Hacker is probably the brand that's the most famous, certainly in Dubai.
Yeah.
So that's our luxury kitchen brand. We also have Kaiser,
Okay.
which I know you know quite well.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kaiser's it's a beautiful brand. It's a premium kitchen, but it's a little bit more accessibly priced.
Okay.
And then we have Holster, which is a German closet brand. So it's beautiful, very bespoke, very customized. And then Rolf Benz, which is our sofa brand.
Okay.
So handmade sofas, totally customizable, 500 different fabrics. Yeah, really, really nice brands to work with.
So overall, the idea of Innerspace would be that if someone has an apartment or a villa here in Dubai and they're wanting to sort of upgrade it,
Yeah.
you would see yourselves as a sort of company that they would work with, I guess, mainly for kitchens, but also for cabinetry and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we wouldn't do the contracting, the build,
Okay.
but we work very, very closely with contractors, architects, all the top architects, top interior designers work with us in Dubai. And we would collaborate and work in partnership with various different, whether it be architects, interior designers, contractors, to bring the project to a nice completion, hopefully seamlessly and stress-free for clients.
Yeah, because I like my wife and I, we bought a Kaiser kitchen about I guess coming on 5 years now. And I remember one of the things was when we went shopping for a kitchen, it was, we wanted to start with that. Like we saw that as like, okay, it's the centerpiece, right?
Yes.
It's sort of like everyone congregates around the kitchen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Rohit, who I was working with, he said, well, it's actually probably going to be the last thing you put in.
Yes.
So we started it with it and we finished with it.
Yeah.
And that's because of, obviously, you asked the contractors to get the space ready.
Yes.
And then you just plug it in, essentially, right?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So I would always advise to get working on the kitchen design as early as possible. Okay. Because there's a lot of implications with the electrical points and water points. Okay. And you don't want to be finalizing those after you've got finished walls. So yeah, exactly what Rohit told you was correct. You want to finalize the design as early as possible. You receive all the electrical drawings from that point, and then the contractors will then base what they're doing from our electrical drawings.
Gotcha.
The last thing you want to be doing is looking at a room with finished electrical points and actually being wrong, and then having to either rip it down or change a design of a kitchen for something that was in there already. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense.
And even, I remember even things like tiling and stuff, because we wanted a splashback, and you obviously have to make sure that it fit, because literally the kitchens are like plug and play, right? They come on the stilts and then they're literally put into the space, right? So it all is pre-measured, isn't it?
Yeah, it's customized.
Yeah.
It's obviously pre-measured by our design team, but it's designed to be totally bespoke for your space. So when we design it, as the design process you went through, no kitchen is the same. There are, with Hacker, I think there's 2,000 different finishes with the door. When you're looking at combinations of cabinetry and colors and interior mechanisms, they go on forever. So every kitchen is totally bespoke. You'll never have another kitchen from us that will be identical. Okay. But getting that design from the start is essential, because then you bring all the electrical points and the requirements for the room off of that. And then just going on to what you said about the kitchen going in last, that's absolutely correct. And I get it. It's tempting when you've been through a long renovation. You want to get the kitchen in. You feel like that's a milestone within the project. But the worst thing you can do is install a kitchen before the area is totally finished. And when I say totally finished, I mean lighting, painting, we need to be the last people in there.
Gotcha. Yeah, because Arsene, his mother bought an apartment in Vienna a couple of years ago, and I remember he took I think a week off to go back to Vienna, and basically one of the things he was doing is he was helping her buy a kitchen, and it was like brand new apartment, right? So I was like, oh, that's quite weird. He go, no, in Vienna it's pretty normal. They never supply kitchens because they finish off the apartment, they get the space ready, and then the clients go out and get their own kitchens. And it kind of makes sense because if you look at, I think community that comes to mind, Sidra, Dubai Hills, or Fairways, Parkways, any of those.
Done tons.
Like, great community, so popular. Obviously, they were sold at decent pricing. You know, you're talking minimum 3 million for the smallest unit in Sidra. But I know so many clients that within the first couple of months, they ripped out what they had and they went to the likes of Hacker or Kaiser or whoever it might be to install a new kitchen. So I think
it's such a personal thing to everyone because it is so personal, and people use kitchens in so many different ways. Some people use it for entertaining, some people use it purely for cooking. There's so many different reasons, but absolutely it makes sense for, like you mentioned about Vienna, people supplying their own because they use it completely different to others.
Yeah, because your background is in kitchens. You're new to Innerspace, right?
Yeah, so I've been within the space for just under 2 months now.
Okay.
And I have come from a kitchen background in the UK, and the differences are huge straight away. I noticed within a couple of days, just smaller things like how the designers go about how they deal with the clients and how they get a real understanding of what the clients use their space for, whether they're left-handed or right-handed, just to keep the ergonomics of the kitchen really sort of tight and a nice flow, constant. And it really makes a difference from the kitchen place I was at in the UK, because it's a bit more, not cookie cutter so much, but a bit more like, oh, you like this kitchen? Yes, it's sort of copy and paste into your space. Whereas here it is very much, we want to understand exactly how you're going to use a kitchen, where everything's going to be, so that we can put everything in the right place.
Gotcha.
So it's a real big difference in sort of the onboarding process and the way that I've really been introduced to the company, and everyone's been sort of so welcoming, but in terms of a knowledgeable aspect as well as an actual sort of technical aspect as well. It's been fantastic.
Great. So if someone out there is looking to buy a kitchen, how do they get started?
That's actually a good question. I think we probably spend the first hour at least with every client educating them on how to buy a kitchen. It sounds really weird, but when you go to buy a kitchen, not many people have bought a kitchen before. Maybe they've bought one, maybe two. But it's not something you're buying every day. So when you're not buying it every day, you don't really know what you're looking for. You can go out and see beautiful kitchens in some showrooms here. But there's a few key questions really that you want to be asking all the suppliers that you're looking at. And key questions that are different here in Dubai as it would be maybe in Europe or something like that. So, warranty, I think that springs to mind first. Hacker gives a 20-year warranty. Like I said, Hacker is a luxury kitchen. I would be questioning personally any brand of that level that doesn't offer a 20-year warranty.
What does the 20-year warranty cover?
So it's a manufacturer's warranty.
Okay.
But it would cover any sort of, in Dubai, I'm sure you've shown people around enough houses where you see the laminates peeling, lacquers changing color, all that kind of stuff. It covers everything. The reason Hacker can give such a long warranty is because all of the cabinetry is what they call tropicalized.
Okay.
So tropicalized essentially means it's treated in Europe and designed to deal with the heat and humidity in the Middle East. Every other European kitchen, it doesn't matter how much you want to spend on it, as far as I'm aware anyway, is a European kitchen and it's designed for Europe. It's not designed to deal with the heat and humidity here.
Okay.
Hence why most of them won't give extended warranties on the kitchens. So the warranty is a big question. It's not the be all and end all, but it's something you should definitely look at. And then if they don't offer longer warranties like that, then ask why. The tropicalized things I explained, I think that's very, very important, especially being here. People want to entertain. You open your big doors into the garden. It's still humid when you're on the cusp of summer. It's a little bit hot, but you still want to open the doors and entertain. You don't want your brand new kitchen being affected by the heat and humidity with that. So I think that's vital.
Yeah.
Something that's sprung up over COVID, and it's probably the more boring aspect of when you're looking for a kitchen, is actually the financial security of a kitchen brand. When you're ordering a kitchen, so you go through the design process and then you order it. It may take 3-4 months for it to get here, but a lot can happen during that time. And I think the vulnerabilities of a lot of brands in general, but some kitchen brands as well, were exposed during COVID. COVID appeared. I think a lot of people were struggling at the time. And then unfortunately, there was some brands that went into liquidation and disappeared or got bought out. But then where does that leave you as a consumer a lot of the time? So I think checking that the brand you're dealing with has a AAA credit rating in Europe gives you that should give you quite a lot of security.
Yeah, and I can just say, like, with regards to the tropicalized sort of feature, like in our apartment, we got a Kaiser kitchen, and we have 3 cats, and they're a pain in the ass, and they go in and out, even in summertime. So we often have that thing where we're sort of opening the door quite a bit, and the heat's coming through. And 5 years on, and it's running pretty smooth.
Yeah,
I'd say like the only drawback that we've had was that we were dealing with Rohit at the time, and we had like we built our apartment in a way that we didn't want it to be like every other apartment. So we put like a brick wall in, for example, wanted to create a cottage feel, and we went for this sort of a classic kitchen, with certain cabinetry, and then there was this Tekka range of ovens and stuff like that. And I think Rohit was kind of advising us to go for something that was a little bit more sort of mainstream in the appliances, but because of the look of this particular Tekka one, we're like, we'll go with that one. And that's obviously, then we ended up with something that's sort of like very limited in stock, because Tekka did it, because obviously you guys supply the kitchens, but then the actual dishwasher and you helped, like Rohit helped us, but obviously it's a different supplier, right? And I think that was I wouldn't say it was a learning curve, because we'd probably do the same. We were more about the look in that, and it looks perfect, right? But it was I think the cabinetry and all that has been fantastic. It's been really good 5 years on.
I'm glad to hear that. Otherwise, this podcast could have gone in another direction.
might not have done the invite, Yeah. So on that, you got Kaiser and you got Hacker.
Yes.
Kaiser being the sort of, let's say, more affordable brand. What entry price are we talking for the two brands?
Kaiser Kitchen can start from 60,000 dirhams all in, with the worktops, appliances. Obviously, it depends on the size. But I would say, and again, going back to the education with clients, a kitchen can cost as much as you want it to cost. It's not totally dependent on the size of the kitchen. Okay. You can have a kitchen of identical size that could cost 80,000 dirhams, or it could cost 700,000 dirhams. And again, this just comes down to the education and understanding where your money goes in a kitchen. So the appliances are quite a big aspect of how you can change the cost of a kitchen. So you mentioned the brand Tekka, which is quite affordable. You've got brands like Wolf, Sub-Zero, Miele Gaggenau. You can literally spend 400,000 dirhams on your appliances, or you can spend 15,000 dirhams. So that's quite a big thing to be looking at that and get your head around when you're designing the kitchen. The second thing is the finish of the door. So you've got the brand itself, but within the brand, there'll be different door finishes. So you've got armored laminates that we've got, which are immensely durable, but they're on the lower side of the cost scale. And then you step into edged doors and lacquered doors, ceramics, real woods. Hacker goes all the way up to real volcanic rock veneer, which is the ultra luxury end. But you can imagine again how much that can affect the cost. And then the interiors. So when you've got drawers, and I'm sure you've got mechanisms that are with the pantry pull-outs and all the clever internal storage mechanisms. If you pack a kitchen out with that, that's going to make a difference to the cost. And then I'm not saying you should have shelves everywhere, but at the same time, we need to be reasonable that if you want to soup up your kitchen, then it will affect the cost. So those three things I would say are the main factors of cost. Worktops, yes, it can go up and down. But those are the three things that you can control with clever choices to keep the kitchen within the budget that you're aiming for. Yeah,
I remember with when we went to do our kitchen, it was kind of buying our first home. We bought a 2-bed here in the Greens. You're somewhat on a budget, right? And and I remember we went to IKEA and we got a quote from there, and we knew with IKEA what we were getting as well. Again, IKEA does the job, right? But it is what it is. And I was very sort of adamant that I'd love to have a kitchen from Kaiser. and Rohit kind of said, okay, well, look, what is it that you're looking to spend, right? And I think it was 60,000. It might have even been 50,000 if I'm honest. But again, we're talking 5 years ago, so prices could have been a little bit lower. And what was actually quite nice about it was that even though we were literally on the sort of real bottom end of, let's say, entry price, we actually really went through it, and we still ended up with a quartz countertop. We still have brass, like stainless steel brass handles. We don't feel like we made too many compromises, and that's even though and we had choice, right? So different color choices all around, and that's the thing. I think a lot of the time, you go into. I've had people come into our apartment and they're just surprised that it only costs 50,000. And I think that's the thing. It's when you give yourself enough time. So we got in there early, as I said, and we worked with Rohit. Like we literally, he was great. He would kind of call us in, and I think at one point he said like, "There's, we've got a lot of quartz at the moment, so we can maybe do something on that front." And we literally worked through it in order for him to kind of get to the price that we wanted, and for us to get the kitchen that we wanted. So I think a lot of clients I've dealt with, they feel that, like, I'm talking about the sort of people who are like entry level, like we were in the property market. They think that if they're going to go for a German brand, it's going to cost them a fortune.
No.
And it can. I mean, but again, as you said, that's their choice, right? If they go for all these high-end materials. But I know that if we ever do more properties, we're going to take the same approach. We're going to go and spend that extra 10,000, 15,000, because I just know it goes such a long way in the lifespan of the time you're in the property.
I mean, ultimately, people do say, sort of get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And that does, it does relate to kitchens as well. It's not necessarily a bigger spend and you're getting the same product. It's everything has a value. And that's obviously the big advantage to Kaiser and Hacker. They have their own sort of selling points, but Kaiser being able to offer a streamlined solution and still provide so much value for the cost.
I think that's the key word, value. Like we've all heard the saying, buy cheap, buy twice. But you can have value at every step of the way. You can have value at a 60,000 dirham kitchen, 100, 200. You can have value at a 1 million dirham kitchen. But I totally understand when normally, and it's natural to be guarded when you're going to buy a product that you sort of want to guard how much you want to spend. But I mean, the experience you've had and the result you've had is just testament to how good Rohit is. And I'm very proud of our whole design team. I'm next level really compared to most of our competitors in Dubai. But I think when you're looking at a kitchen, it is very complicated. And our job at Innerspace, it's not to force you to spend 1 million dirhams on your kitchen. It's to try and ensure that you get the most value for what you want to spend. So helping us and giving us an element of transparency with your target cost. It doesn't have to be to the dirham. But it's a lot more of an efficient process, because if you don't know, you don't know. So you may come in and say, okay, I'm not telling you what my budget is. We may came back with 100,000 dirham and 800,000 dirham design, which may be way under or way above. But if you're a little bit more accurate, you can say, look, around this mark, we can be very clever and do a lot of things. It's way too boring to go through now, but we can do a lot of things to make sure that you get the most value. And maybe then you do get better ovens than you're expecting, or a higher door choice than you're expecting.
I mean, we obviously in real estate, we've got sometimes the same issue. Right? I've had some clients who have blatantly said to me, I'm not going to tell you my budget. Like, wow, okay, that's interesting. I mean, Dubai's prices vary a lot, mate. So we got to start somewhere.
But I bet it makes the process longer,
Exactly.
You go around the houses, so to speak.
Again, and you're also not, in sales, whether it's Innerspace, whether it's us, like, we like time is money as well, right? Like we want to have like a relationship with our clients where we know that they respect our time and that, if we're going to put the effort in, that we're working together, right? So us asking for a budget or you asking for a budget is not because we're trying to go, okay, let's maximize that. It's because we want to know what we can work with, right? And it is going to limit the choices naturally. So obviously, since the pandemic, one of the things we've seen in Dubai and across the world is that everyone's gotten a lot more excited about their homes, right? They've spent more time at home, and a lot of people have either bought properties and then chosen to upgrade them. I'm thinking of Meadows, Springs, Jumeirah Islands, those kind of communities. Or they've done it in the homes that they have already, right? So I'm sure that your numbers must have grown substantially come late 2020, 2021, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hacker and Kaiser's time comes on they are very established brands anyway. And I think even during the pandemic, we were still the go-to brand because we're the security, we're the solid people in the market. We're the largest luxury brand. We're not going anywhere.
You say largest, like, I mean, are you able
market
to,
share?
So, were you able to disclose like how much you would do?
We install we don't do projects per se, so we wouldn't install 1,000 kitchens in Dubai Hills, or we don't do tower blocks. It's just not really our area. We're big believers in stick to what you're good at, and we are very, very good at high-end luxury individual kitchens. So we probably do 150 to 200 luxury individual kitchens a year. And I'll probably say that's about the numbers we do throughout the whole company. So and really that comes down to our processes. You can't do that volume and get the level of clients that we're working with on a day-to-day basis, and also give them the service that they expect and meet their expectations without a solid company process. So we're working towards at the moment being ISO certified this year. And our aim is always to try and make the whole process seamless. So it's all well and good going and buying a kitchen, but we want people to enjoy buying the kitchen with us. We focus on trying to give people a 5-star experience from the minute they walk through the door. And a big sort of buzzword within Innerspace is the word excellence. So, and I think excellence it translates into every language. And I think you can look at any situation, whether it's dealing with a client with communication, a design, how you dealt with a certain issue at the end of the project, and say, was that excellent? And I think everybody would be on the same wavelength to say yes or no.
I think like on that point, a big thing that we've started to do here at McComb Properties since we've been growing the business is to really focus on our brand and how it's perceived in the market. And one area where we've noticed that it's having an impact on us is Google reviews. It's a simple thing, but agents that are joining us check it. A lot of our clients are checking it. We've even had a few developers that we're looking to work with, like on exclusive basis and stuff. They check it. So naturally, like myself, it's sort of one of the first things I look at. And obviously, you guys are very much in a service industry and in customer facing, and you guys have 145 Google reviews with an average rating of 4.9. Like, I know from my business how hard that is to get. So I think that's probably testament to the work that you guys have done. Because it's what we notice as well is people either give a 5-star review or 1-star review. It's rarely the 2, 3, or 4, right? So no, I think that's very much in line with what you've just said.
To be honest with the Google reviews, it's not something we've pushed that hard in the past either.
I mean, I never did one. So I wasn't asked to. It's sort of I was even thinking there's probably a lot more out there that you could get, but
I actually think there's probably more as well, because for some reason Google removed some of them. And I mean, there's the Google reviews are a double-edged sword as well, because you probably get this where some clients try and use it as a weapon sometimes as well. Just because they're not getting maybe what they want in a certain situation, for however unreasonable it may be, they try and use that, and then you do get, unfortunately, sort of competitors playing games and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I most of those clients on there I know personally, and they've had great experiences with us.
One of the things you do, I think it's after the first year, you come as well to visit the kitchen to make sure everything's. Well, what does that involve?
It's with Hacker. We call it a kitchen tune-up. So when you get when you have a brand new kitchen, everything's obviously brand new. So hinges are brand new, drawer runners are brand new. But then over time, where you've got a door, and you've got a little bit of leverage on that door as the door goes out, maybe 600 millimeters, or you're going to fill all your drawers up with heavy pots, pans. So those drawer runners will bed in, and so will the hinges. So everything will move maybe a millimeter or two, like barely noticeable. But for us, we want perfection.
Okay.
We don't want it barely noticeable. We want it to be perfect. So yeah, so our technicians will come out and we do a tune up. We basically come and adjust all the drawer runners, all the hinges. We look over the whole kitchen, make sure all the plinths are clipped on properly, and just make sure it's as good as the day it was installed. And then that's a service that we provide to clients as well. Some clients have had kitchens that were installed 12, 13 years ago here. And then we'll come back, spend an hour, just adjust everything, make sure it's all perfect again. And it's good to go for another 10, 13 years.
Yeah, no, we had one, I think, a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Did the trick. Good as gold. So,
Good.
So no complaints on that.
Good to hear.
What would be, again, in this field, someone's out there maybe just bought a property and they're planning to kind of do a renovation and get a new kitchen. What would be each of your sort of piece of advice that you would give them? And it can be sort of like, again, you've been in the industries long enough.
Yeah.
It can be anything that you think could be something that they could really use.
One in regards to how to choose a kitchen brand?
Yeah, it can be kitchen, it can be, planning, anything like that. What would be, if it was your mate, what would you tell them?
If it was me personally, I think that over the years in Dubai, a substandard contractor, a substandard service has become the norm here.
Yeah.
And it's certainly substandard for what I would expect. And just going back to what we say, we're saying excellence is our standard because we don't want to provide that. But I think it's become the norm here. So you need to find a way for the bar to be raised on your project. I would personally say that if you want to guarantee that your project actually turns out well, but certainly if it's a larger renovation, because just going back to buying a kitchen, you may not have done that before, but you definitely haven't done a renovation.
Yeah.
So then you've got to try and pull together the kitchen, the bathroom, the contractor, the architect, the interior designer, the windows, the doors, the floors, the ceilings, the lighting. Is it all being done correctly? Should you be paying what you're paying for it? The list goes on and on and on. So I would actually say to find a residential project manager that is totally non-biased. He has no connection with any of the people you're working with, but he works very closely with you. And he's your insurance. He's your safety net. He's the one that vets everyone, make sure they have got trade licenses, make sure they got all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then just pulls everyone together.
So so it was kind of a bit of a leading question for me then, because a very close client of mine, he actually recently bought a Hacker kitchen. I say recently, it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Because my piece of advice is I think Hacker or Kai's is the way to go kitchen wise.
Yes.
But I think finding the right contractor is so important. And I know that this client of mine has had a lot of issues. That it's taken 2 years for his project to be ready for the kitchen to be installed, and that's not on Hacker. That's on his contractor, right?
Yeah.
And now I know that the measurements are slightly off, and I know for a fact again it's the contractor, and it's like, and the contractor he's used is his friend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I remember at the time when it was happening, I was like, again, you want to work with your clients and all this, but there obviously here in Dubai, there are some people that unfortunately don't do things right, you know, but there are some who do.
Yes.
And I really believe that. I mean, some of the projects out here are absolutely amazing, but I think a lot of the times people, they just rush to decisions, or they take the wrong piece of advice because it's a friend or something like that. I just think that, like, we were so happy because what actually happened is we went to Kaiser, we went to Rohit. He then put us in touch with, it was Simon from Profix, which they've now changed the brand, and they then put us in touch with Square Foot Studio, which was kind of a more affordable. So and so we actually got the recommendation of the contractor as well, from like through sort of like word of mouth.
Yes.
And they were great, you know, and so everything was sort of like really aligned. It still had its issues and everything, but
there's a lot of over promising and under delivering.
Exactly.
And contractors as well. We see it as we work with such a broad spectrum of them. They go up and down, where you'll have contractors that are doing very well. Because they're doing very well, they take on a lot more work. They probably take on a bit too much, and then they go down, and then so it's a bit of a roller coaster sometimes, and it is difficult. It's very, very difficult. I mean, that's really how Innerspace started. Where the aim was to elevate the experience of a client that's doing a renovation or a fit out project, because we could see that there was such a hole in the market where people were just accepting this substandard work. And we just thought that we could elevate that and hopefully bring everybody else up with us.
Yeah, and I think utilizing friends, family. I mean, there's a lot of social media groups and people that can help with recommendations, and I think that over here in particular is so important.
Things like Google reviews sounds so basic, but if a company has got a lot of Google reviews, there's probably a reason for that. And sometimes in the restaurant industry, yes, people are pushing a lot for it. Getting Google reviews is not easy. And maybe it's something that we probably need to look at a little bit more in future. They're very organic at the moment. It's just been people that have been, and I genuinely believe it's just because they were so surprised that we've just said what we were going to do and we did it, and it was seamless, and the design part of it was enjoyable. And I think it's just shock sometimes that, wow, this company actually did what we wanted, and it looks the same as what we expected, and we didn't get ripped off, and they're still here for the after service as well.
No, it's a smooth operation. I can tell it as a client.
Yeah, it's good to hear.
It runs pretty.
When it comes to reviews, unfortunately, generally people review when they have a bad experience.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is the way of the world. If you're not happy with something, you go, right, when I get home, I'm going to TripAdvisor, I'm going to Google, and I'm going to tell everyone how bad my experience was. If you have a good experience, you're expecting a good experience. If you go to buy something, you want it to be perfect, because you're not going to want to go there if you're expecting it to be substandard. So it is expected that you get a perfect kitchen, that you get a perfect service. So when you get it, it's like, oh, that's what I wanted anyway. But if you don't get it, you're like, right, I want to tell everyone how bad my experience was and so on. So
it's tough.
It is very tough. Yeah,
there's a lot of people that shout in Dubai. It's a very loud city, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody's saying about how good they are. But I also, you don't want to come across and sound arrogant, but I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, no, but we are actually good. We work very, very hard at being good as well. This is a very difficult country to do a renovation in, and it's a very difficult country to be a company that works within the interior renovation industry. And we face a lot of problems with contractors as well. Maybe they want the kitchen installed too early, and we're telling the client, and this is something that I would recommend to every client, that we touched on it earlier about getting the kitchen installed late. My analogy is always, whenever I speak to a client or a contractor that's insisting that the kitchen's installed prior to when we would like it to, I always say to them, would you park your brand new car in this room until the end of the project? And most of them say no. I say, okay, well, that's why we're not putting the kitchen in.
I'm sure something else you guys struggle with is that a lot of contractors probably, my guess is that a lot of people who are doing renovations, they actually first speak with contractors. So they'll go out there, they'll have a couple of conversations. And then I'm guessing that even if they come to you, probably the contractor will turn around and actually say to them, well, I can get you a kitchen for cheaper or something like that. But what these clients might not realize is that they're probably outsourcing it as well, right?
Of course, most do. There are some very, very good contractors in Dubai.
Yes.
But not many of them have their own joinery workshops that can make their own kitchen. But then, of course, again, it comes down to education. Do you want a locally made kitchen? Are you happy with that? If so, that's fine. But then the price that you pay should reflect that also. Or do you want something of a different level of quality? And then in which case, what's the
chances of having a 20-year warranty? Right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and this is where you come back to asking those questions. Is it tropicalized? Has it got a warranty? What's the sort of financial situation? Even things like, do you know formaldehyde? It's a gas that comes out of furniture like this. Most wood compressed furniture. That's, as health is becoming a much, much bigger part of what people care about. And certainly in Dubai as well, where you've got formaldehyde coming out of products with the aircon that goes round and round and round. Certainly for newborn babies, it can affect them. So the atmosphere that we're living in and the health of fixed furniture is becoming more and more, people want to question it and they want to find out how safe is it. But now Hacker, formaldehyde, it produces no formaldehyde at all. So they market it as the safest kitchen you can buy, but it is. And it's something that, again, that you should ask them. Like, it's certainly with local kitchens. There's not many rules here. You can put whatever paints, whatever lacquers, whatever you want on it. And there's not really any way of verifying or checking how safe it is. So that's another question that I think would go over most people's heads, and they wouldn't really appreciate it until they hear about it and say, wait a minute,
No,
is this actually safe or not?
Yeah, I suppose a big part of what you do is educating, right? It's sort of making people understand what exactly they have to pay close attention to. Because as you said, me, myself, sort of been out, 33 years, I've bought a kitchen once.
Yeah.
And that's probably more than most people, right?
Yeah.
So like it's sort of one of those things you just don't really think of it, right?
Yeah,
just sort of you see the end product, it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good to go.
And you look at a picture of a kitchen and it could be made anywhere in the world. They look the same in a picture. It's only Hacker actually did. It was a marketing technique, but it was testament to the quality. So when I was in Germany last year, and there was a factory worker, and in Germany they work in the factories and they work there forever. He bought a Hacker kitchen in 1954, and then they said to him, "Look, can we actually have your kitchen back, and we'll give you a new kitchen?" And he said, "Yeah, great, I'll get a free kitchen, no problem." So they took the kitchen back and they installed it in their showroom.
Okay.
And it's absolutely fine. Yes, it hasn't got the soft close that you've got nowadays and stuff like that, but there is absolutely nothing wrong with that kitchen. And they just did it just to show, look, this is what we're telling you. It's so good.
It's one of like, a lot of people ask me, what would you buy, right?
Yeah.
In property related, right? So, and I always I'm a big fan of buying in the older communities and renovating. Like I feel that that's where the most value can be had. It can be a marina, it can be here in the Greens, a townhouse, villa, whatever. And one of the reasons why I'm such a fan is because when I see developers building these new communities, and we sell a lot of them and they have a lot of positive things, but then one of the areas where I feel they let themselves down so much is the kitchens.
Yeah.
And I just don't get it.
That's what sells the property.
It's like, and they put that, what do you call it? That sink unit, right? That one that you get for 100 dirhams in Satwa.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the guy spent 3 million dirhams on this property. What are you doing? Like, please.
You know what? I think because a lot of them are sold off plan as well.
Exactly.
You don't always get what you were promised when it's off plan. I think if overnight they stopped selling off plan, that would probably change. It would have to because you can see through it when you get there.
I remember I had this meeting with the projects developer from EMA, and it was like they'd invited a few industry heads to have this conversation. It was after they had handed over fairways and some of the Sidras and stuff like that, and they were asking like, what do you guys recommend we do? And I think it was Simon Baker from House and House, or it could have been Abdullah from Driven. Yeah. But one of them actually literally said, look, guys, you guys build great communities, and they do. EMA build the best communities. The villas are solid, they're good. He said, but just don't even make an attempt at the kitchen. He's like, just give them 100,000 dirham voucher and send them to Hacker.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, we
can work with that.
Because again, like it's almost like they're just plugging it in to just fill the space.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
And I think expectations as well in Dubai, people expect to buy a property and renovate the kitchen.
Yeah,
because it's just gone so long. There's just no option. The thing with the older communities, like you were saying, is the space as well. They're generally bigger. You've got more square footage, so you can do a lot more with the kitchen. And there's a lot more options with islands and things like that you can do.
But it's funny because actually some of the best kitchens I see in new builds now is in JVC, in those kind of like these small apartments where the developers are actually, they're private developers, so they don't have the brand, they don't have the edge. So they have to turn around and do something a little bit different to stand out.
Yes.
So they actually have these kind of like really, really nice kitchens, which are, I'd actually say, far superior than what the major developers are doing. And it's so sort of counterintuitive to what you would expect.
I think it's important as well when you're buying any property, but certainly with the older properties, when you're going to then change the kitchen, is that you should be working with an experienced kitchen designer that's been here for years, done all the different communities, all the different layouts. They should be able to guide you on approximately what people would spend within a bracket in this area. And it's not a hard and fast rule. You don't need to stay within that. But when it does come to resale, you want to, it needs to be proportionate.
Yeah.
If you're buying a Palm Villa and you're putting an IKEA kitchen in, it's probably not going to add much value.
Yeah.
At the same time, if you buy an apartment in the Greens and spend 800,000 dirhams on your kitchen, it's probably not going to work. But and the same with size as well. It needs to be proportionate. Everybody wants an island in their kitchen, but your designer should be at a level that they can guide you around for different options. Sometimes it's possible, but it's not recommended. But then there's lots of different ways you can figure that.
And it also ties in again with the contractor and the knowledge, because again, you look at the springs, for example, springs and Arabian ranches, they have the same type, right? Al-Reem, Al-Mam, and springs, it's all the same type of villa. And there are certain like things that you can do, right? Like break walls and stuff like that.
Yes.
And some contractors, they know this from the outset, and then and that's how you get the islands, right? So we've got an Al-Reem 2, type 2E listed, and went to go see it the other day, and the guy bought it like basic, and he's got this most beautiful big kitchen because the contractor knew, okay, what walls can you break, how can you open it up, and it all just ties in with, again, you said it, like, you know, you get what you pay for. Like, you've picked the right contractor, you work with the right kitchen company like Hacker, you do all these things right from the outset, you're gonna get a good product. And
definitely,
and I think that's very doable in Dubai. I think it's when you try to cut corners, or you get mates rates, or you get like this kind of thing, that's when it can backfire.
And again, it comes down to the level of your kitchen designer as well, but we can contribute hugely to that. We've, like I said, the volume of kitchens we've done over the years, almost any layout in Dubai now, if you come to me with a Sidra or a garden villa on the Palm, the lakes, meadows, anywhere, and with a layout, I can show you 5, 7, 10, 20 different designs we've done. And we know exactly which wall can come down, where there's a column, is there a column in that type? And then show lots of different colors and options, because visualizing it is half the battle. But to be able to see what's possible so quickly, it's efficiency as well. You don't want to spend 6 months trying to work out if a wall can come down. Why not speak to an expert that can tell you in 2 minutes, yes, and I'm not just making this up. I've done it 20 times. Here's all the pictures of it. How should we do your kitchen?
I suppose in your industry as well, there's also a lot of people who are like quite house proud, right? So like once they've done the kitchen, they probably reckon if you call them up and say, hey, I've got someone that has the same type, they want to see what it looks like. They're probably quite keen to show it off, right? Like, I know we are. So.
A lot of our clients are word of mouth and referrals anyway. Like, we've got an amazing marketing department, and luckily they've got amazing brands to work with as well. But most of our projects are referrals from friends, family members. It's a very social city, isn't it? So people entertain. They have lots of people around for dinner. Kitchen looks amazing. Where did you get that from? And then hopefully we deliver the exact same service to those people, and we keep building from that point.
Nice. So I'll just finish off by, where exactly is your showroom for those that don't know?
We are on the Sheikh Zayed Road, next to the Al Zahra Hospital. So Al Barsha, basically near the Ibis Hotel. But it's in Google. You can check out the Google reviews when you're there as well. But yeah, come down and have a look. So in that showroom, we've got Hacker, which is on the ground floor, Kaiser, which is on the second floor, Holster, all of our closets is there as well. And so is Rolf Benz, but we're actually expanding into a brand new Rolf Benz studio as well. Okay.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, thanks a lot, guys. And as I said, I highly recommend them myself. Very happy. It was great to have you guys on the podcast, and really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll come again.
Great. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.